Hey everybody, welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo O on June 7th, 2022, Saturday, and getting ready to get in the Word myself. So I'm grateful to be able to get online and kind of have you all with me on the ride. So excited to be with you today, and you can always check out the archive Devos at my YouTube channel at Bo Ouellette. On YouTube. So that's Bo Ouellette, Ouellette. Check them out. Paula, thanks so much for getting in the house early, joining me. It's a little early. It's about a half an hour earlier than normal that I get in. So I'm probably throwing some people off, but hey, that's okay. We have a big VBS week at the church, which is awesome. A bunch of kids are having a blast. And so yeah, it's a busy week, very cool week. I got some family in town, super fun there, and now it's time to get in the Word. So Deuteronomy 24, another very famous passage, and like I've mentioned before, Deuteronomy means the reiteration of the law, and Jesus again quotes this section of the book of Deuteronomy. And so this is another passage that we see is used in the New Testament. So if you've ever wondered, like, hey, what are they talking about in the New Testament? Or I've read the New Testament, but I don't quite get everything that's being shared. Well, it might be because a lot of the references are to these passages in the Old Testament. And so here it says, if a man marries a woman who becomes displeasing to him, and this was kind of a big debate of like, what does that term displeasing mean? What exactly is displeasing? If a man marries a woman and it's displeasing, well, what if a woman marries a man and it's displeasing? Right? I guess it could go both ways, can it? Yeah, absolutely. Well, here it says if a man marries a woman, and of course back then, it was a man's duty actually to go to the family of the woman and ask for her hand, to ask for her hand in a betrothal way, to be betrothed together. So that's why there was a financial responsibility, there was a social responsibility on the men in a lot of ways to do things right, and to do things kind of in this order. And so that's why it talks about a man marrying a woman, right? A daughter, a young girl, would be under of course the care of her father and mother, and no one can just marry her. No one can just get her and say, hey, you're gonna marry me, that kind of thing. It had to be something that's accepted by the family. And so if a man does marry a woman who becomes displeasing to him, so it's got to be pretty interesting, whatever that displeasing to him means. And there was arguments, and Jesus had to deal with this. It says, because he finds something indecent about her, and he writes her a certificate of divorce, gives it to her, and sends her from his house. And if after that she leaves his house, she becomes the wife of another man. So even back then, guess what? People remarried. What a trip, right? You might have thought like, hey, I wonder if that ever happened back then. Yeah, that's how it worked. Yeah, even back then it did. So interesting. Paula says, I know men that still do this. Yeah, sometimes men do still have that responsibility, Paula, and kind of ask for a hand in marriage and stuff like that. Yeah. And so she does marry another man, and her second husband displeases her, and man, this girl's really striking out, huh? Wouldn't you say? She's becoming displeasing to everybody. It says. And her second husband gives her, or writes her, a certificate of divorce, and gives it to her and sends her from his house. Or if he dies, then her first husband who divorced her is not. So this is where the Torah comes in, the law. She is not allowed to marry, or he is not allowed to marry her again. So the first husband is not allowed to marry her again after she has been defiled, or after she has been with another man. That would be detestable in the eyes of the Lord. Do not bring sin upon the land the Lord your God is giving you as an inheritance. So this kind of form of relational sin is something that God says, hey, this is going to corrupt the land. Actually the land that you live in. And it's something that's detestable. And I'm giving you this land as an inheritance. It's something to honor and cherish as you would an inheritance if you got it from your family, right? If someone came up to you and said, hey, by the way, you're getting an inheritance, usually we go, man, that's awesome, man, what a blessing, man, thank you so much, and all that. And you really want to honor that. Well, God says the same about the land. Hey, honor the land, treat it well. But the whole point of this, I hope you see the whole point of this law. It's one of restraining just guys from, check this out, just marrying, having this flippant attitude on marriage and remarriage, for sure, right? You can't just go back and marry the first wife, right? And you can't just go back to the husband that was the first. You can't just go and do these things, and I think there's a good restraint there, and something that helps me to look at my relationships and goes, hey, is there restraint in my relationships? Am I using restraint? Am I looking at relationships flippantly, like a commodity, something you can go into a store and purchase, and just buy, and you don't think much of it? It's a good item. It's not a good item. I don't know. Do I look at it like that, like relationships, or do I see them much more valuable? Um, and so we have to kind of restrain our flesh from relationship madness, if you will. We have to restrain ourselves from going in directions that sometimes the flesh wants to go in. And so I see that in the passage, just as far as my own Devo and my own kind of walk with God, be careful not to go in that relationship madness kind of way, and to use some restraint, right? And not just be flippant in these ways. So there's a lot to say on this passage. There's a lot of beautiful Bible studies you can do just on this section, because there's some really cool references within the Old Testament, the prophets, what's called the prophets of the Old Testament, that use this passage as well. And this is a popular section in there in some areas. Again, I told you Jesus said this. And it's really the first time we see this idea of divorce come in as well. And so there's some really neat studies to do on that. The sending away, right? The sending out of the house of a person. Pretty radical, right? Think of it like this way too, just as Adam and Eve were sent out of the garden, right? There was a divorcement, right, of God, of them being in the garden, if you will, of Eden with God. And so there's a lot of interesting things to study in the passage, and I'll just give you that as a caveat. So if you want to study more, you certainly can. It's an area that you could stay in quite a long time and just kind of massage, But anyway, don't go back to the first husband. It's detestable. The relationships can, defile the land. And it's kind of neat. Again, do I look at the land like that? Do I look at my relationships and my attitude as something that affects even the land, even the ground, even the trees, even the vegetation? Wow, what an interesting outlook, right? That I would have, that I would even think of my own attitudes and my own actions as being something that affects the environment around me in that kind of way. It's kind of interesting, right? Now, obviously in Israel, God is going to dwell in the presence of his people. And so when he is on the land, so to speak, right? The land has God there. It's holy, right? It's holy land. Why? Because God is there. And so I could see that kind of idea is like when you just commit sin and go the sinful route, in a sense, you're defiling the ground that God is at. Take off your shoes, Moses, right? Take off your sandals, for you're on holy ground kind of thing. You get that kind of idea there, I think, in this section, kind of a little bit of a parallel, maybe a big parallel there to the Moses and the burning bush kind of idea. But it says, if a man has recently married, he must not be sent to war or have any other duty laid on him. For 1 year, he is to be free to stay at home and bring happiness to his wife he has married. Hey, stay home, man. Don't go to war right off the bat. What if we even observed that one in our world? That would be really cool, don't you think? So, man, we be people who really think about the earth and think about what we're doing to things around us, but we'd also be thinking about people. Thinking about, hey, yeah, we got to go to war, but you know what? You just got married, bro. Don't go to war. Hey, young sister, don't go to war, right? That kind of thing. You just got married, right? And then I love this, stay at home and bring happiness to the wife. Isn't that cool too? A real emphasis on bringing joy to your wife. Now, it could be that the joy was just the idea of the intimacy itself, just being with your spouse, bringing joy to her. And obviously the result of that intimacy, which is a progeny, which is very important. If you don't think progeny is very important, by the way, then basically the society will die out. we just no longer will be a society or a city or a town or anything like that. So if you think really low of progeny and motherhood, that kind of thing, then obviously there'll be a decline in people, right? That's right. And over time, that will, you'll see the effects of it in the land, right? There'll just be a decline in population. And if it keeps going that route, there'll be no more population. That's just how it rolls, man. That's how it goes. If you think that's right, let me know. But here it says in the Torah to bring happiness. It could be that idea, though, of bringing, having a child and just the happiness that a mom has in that. And before you go to war, though, make sure you do that. Continue on the name. Continue on. You guys have an inheritance. You have a land allotted to you. So you can see the idea there, right? God brings in the people into the land. Each of them get a land allotted to them, and they're supposed to continue. That land's supposed to continue in the family. So do not take a pair of millstones, not even the upper one, as security for a debt, because that would be taking a man's livelihood as security. Hey, you know what? Don't take what is something that helps a person survive away from them when you're collecting a debt. So be careful what you're taking from someone when you are collecting a debt. That you don't take their livelihood, right? You don't take something that costs them their life. Man, this is something that we really need to hear in our day, in the way our systems work in our world, right? Are we taking people's livelihoods away where they no longer can provide for their family? A millstone, you can grind stuff with that thing. So it's very important. That's how they grind their food and prepare it. To take someone's tools away like that, right? It is to take away their ability to provide for themselves and for their families. And man, when someone's in a rough time financially, the last thing they need is a debt collector to come and take their home. It's unreal, right? Unreal. But we are in not a very merciful situation in our world. Maybe Torah is much more better than even what we do. Might be. If a man is caught kidnapping one of his brother Israelites and treats him as a slave or sells him, the kidnapper must die. Wow. Okay, so if a man is caught kidnapping one of his brother Israelites, treats him as a slave and sells him, hey, did this happen in Genesis? Yeah, someone sold their brother. Remember that? A bunch of brothers sold a brother? Yeah, well, guess what? That's in the Torah, that's deserving of execution, capital crime if you sell your brother, right? If you treat him as a slave, it says you must purge the evil. So everything that the brothers of Joseph did to him and selling him as a slave and him ending up in Egypt, all that would have been a capital crime under the law of Moses. Or it's really the law of God through Moses, right? The covenant between Israel and God. And it says, in cases of leprous diseases, be very careful to do exactly as the priests who are Levites instruct you. You must follow carefully what I have commanded them. Oh, just remember, everybody, right? Remember the ideas of the leprosy, diseases, what to do when diseases strike, who to talk to, who to go to. Very big in our day as well. Who are we going to listen to? So I love the last two sections, right? Hey, don't treat people bad. Don't kidnap them. Right? Kidnapper? No, not good. Love people. When it comes to diseases, hey, remember how to deal with them, right? Remember things. Again, who are we going to trust when it comes to infectious diseases? What is it? Hopefully there's places we can go to and we can listen. And there's great debate and dialogue and on these things so we can listen and glean what needs to be gleaned. And so we can make good decisions as well, So that's what it's saying. Hey, when you have this leprous disease, make sure you remember what I said about the instructions, what to do. Go to the priest, talk to them, that kind of thing. Go to the right source. And yeah, so enough said on that. I think you get the picture, and I think you probably agree that, man, sometimes more information is better than less information when it comes to things like this, right? You want to have a lot of information to sift through, read through, see what is true and what is not, and kind of comb through it. Yeah. So when you make a loan of any kind to your neighbor, do not go into his house to get what he's offering as his pledge. Yo, let me go into your house, man. Right? I'm gonna make a loan with you, whatever. Let me go in there, grab something. Nope, can't do that, right? Stay outside and let the man to whom you are making the loan bring the pledge out to you. So be considerate with your neighbor. Don't overstep your bound with your neighbor, right? Don't overstep your bound. Be careful. Be hospitable. Don't just just because you're going into a business dealing doesn't mean that you overstep your bound. Know your place. If the man is poor, do not go to sleep with his pledge in your possession. If you're making this pledge with someone, this loan, and you have this possession of his as a pledge, and you keep it, man, they might not be able to survive, or they might need that. So be considerate and give it back. Return his cloak to him by sunset, it says, so that he may sleep in it. Then he will thank you, and it will be regarded as a righteous act in the sight of the Lord your God. Isn't that cool? It's a righteous act. It's something cool, man. It's something you're helping him out. You're thinking of him. What's righteous? Thinking of others. Isn't that cool? That's the righteous act. Considering where someone else is at. Now, this is tough in a lot of our situations because, again, a lot of us live in little neighborhoods that sometimes we move into areas where we never are around needy people again. You know what I mean? And sometimes we can do that. And so we don't really have to think of others. We live in an affluent society, so we just think of ourselves. But you know what? If you really think about it, any neighborhood you're in, if you have neighbors, and you get to know them, you will find that there's needs there, and there's ways you can be hospitable and ways you can help out. Even though we do set up our societies where people try to become more individualistic and move away from areas where there's conflict because they want peace, right? They don't want conflict. But in Israel, they're close together. So sometimes you might have someone who's made some little less money than the other person, or a lot less money. So you had to work with each other. You had to learn how to function together and think of others. And so it's good too. In a family, we should be thinking of others, right? Not neglecting people, but think of others. So the idea is just, hey, am I thinking of others? Do not take advantage of a hired man who is poor and needy, whether he is a brother Israelite or an alien living in one of your towns. Even if he's an alien, someone who's not from Israel, don't mistreat them. Don't take advantage of a hired man. Now, this is really cool. Don't take advantage of a hired man. The idea of employees, employers, the idea of hiring someone who is poor so you can pay him less. I think there's an injustice there that the Torah is tapping on, something that is so dominant in our culture, for sure, and has been around forever. The idea of trying to make as much money as you can, cutting any corner possible. Do not take advantage of a hired man who is poor and needy, whether he is a brother Israelite or an alien living among your towns. Pay him his wages each day before sunset, because he is poor and is counting on it. Otherwise, he may cry to the Lord against you, and you will be guilty of sin. That's right. You will be guilty of sin because you're not paying him the wage. he worked for a day, you need to pay him, but instead maybe you're not. Maybe you're holding out on him because he's poor. You're thinking of him different. There's something in our hearts, man, that just always go astray. Super prejudice. Man, if you don't think you are, oh my gosh, there's a lot to learn, man, in your heart. Man, if you do any inventory, self-inventory at all in your life, you will find that there's something wrong in you that thinks these ways. And it's really gnarly. And what I mean by gnarly is it just has this evil twist to it. And it's super yucky. So the Torah addresses that. And in the people, again, a restraint law. Hey, the Torah is wanting to restrain you from taking advantage of people because of their economic level. And so don't do it. And yet, that's something that we have to deal with in our lives, individual lives. Fathers shall not be put to death for their children, nor children put to death for their fathers. Each is to die for his own sin. That's right. This is repeated by the prophet Ezekiel in his book. The idea is that you're responsible for your own stuff, right? You're responsible for your own stuff. Very interesting, and it will be in a very important passage to look at as we move on through the Bible. That's for sure. So in Israel, any execution that goes on through their court system, it has to be, the person who actually committed the act. It can't be someone on behalf of someone. And that's how it's got to be. So it says, do not deprive the alien for the fatherless of justice, or take the cloak of the widow as a pledge. It says, remember that you were slaves in Egypt. The Lord your God redeemed you from there. That is why I command you to do this. So again, the idea of a law of restricting you from being harsh, right, to people, an alien, someone who's a foreigner, treating him different, not allowing him to be under the law of the land, but to treat him, you're starting to treat him differently because he's not from that area. So it says, don't deprive the alien or the fatherless, right? Someone who does not have a father, of justice. Or take the cloak, the thing that they need, the comfort that they need, of the widow as a pledge. Don't take her prized possessions, the things that are there for her survival, right? Don't put someone in these situations. Don't treat them unjustly. Very important in our day and age, these things. If we just thought about these things in our day, hey, how am I going to treat everybody? Am I going to show favoritism today? Is that what I'm going to do? And am I going to show favorites in people's lives? Like, oh yeah, you're cool, you're not, oh da 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 da. Is that how I'm going to be? Is justice just for them, or is justice not for them? Like, how does it work? In my mind, how am I treating people? Is there an equality here of the way I'm treating one another? And so this is very important. So if someone's not from Israel, you treat them, you still hold them to the justice of the land, right? And be careful how you treat the widow. And that's really important too. Is my heart sensitive to widows? When you are harvesting in your field and you overlook a sheaf, okay, you're harvesting in your land, you got some extra food laying around, you forgot to harvest that area, do not go back and get it. Leave it for the alien, the fatherless, and the widow, so that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat the olives from your trees, do not go over the branches a second time. Corporations, leave what remains for the alien, the fatherless, and the widow. When you harvest the grapes in your vineyard, do not go over the vines again. Right? Business owner, leave what remains for the alien, the fatherless, and the widow. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt. That is why I command you to do this. It's kind of really a cool note to the business people of the world, right? The CEOs, all that stuff, to say to them, hey, leave some of the crops for the people that are in need. Don't just look at it all as cha-ching, right? More money. Don't just look at it as like, wow, I get to make more money from the land. I forgot to do that section of the crops. I missed it. So I'm gonna hit it right now. Nope. You are to leave that. You miss it, you leave it. And you leave it for other people. There's something divine in the missing of it. And it's to help out others. Isn't that cool? To help out other people. And so, again, it's a law to restrain the heart of greed, right? The greedy heart, the covetous heart that wants more, and more. And will do everything to get it. Will strip the tree naked and bare, right? Will cut down every tree in the forest. Will do everything possible to strip the land of all of its resources for our gain, right? So that we can have amazing vacations all over the planet. Woo! Yeah. Chapter 24. Another amazing one. Love one another. Love does no harm to your neighbor. That's what it says in the New Testament, right? Love does no harm. And here we see in Deuteronomy 24 this idea, just consistently flowing throughout it, to love, to think about how we treat one another, to think about our relationships, to not treat things so trivially, right? But to really learn how to love like the Messiah. And this is how Jesus loved, right? No favoritism, wanting justice for everybody, and wanting to treat people right. Beautiful. Something we can all live and strive for. So great Devo, great start of the day. You guys have a great one, okay? Take care. Bye-bye.